Have you ever wondered why your life never quite unfolds the way you planned? Why the same mistakes keep repeating? Why, despite your intelligence, your ambitions, and your knowledge, you still find yourself trapped in cycles of regret, failure, and chaos? You might believe the world is against you, that bad luck follows you, that you just haven't found the right path yet. But what if I told you the true enemy isn't out there? It's inside you. It whispers to you in moments of weakness. It makes you act before you think. It clouds your mind with illusions, convincing you that what you feel is real, even when it's leading you straight into destruction. This enemy is your emotions, and left unchecked, they will ruin your life. The ancient Stoics understood this better than anyone. They knew that emotions, when left untamed, turn men into slaves. Slaves to anger, to lust, to fear, to pride. They saw how kings lost their empires, warriors lost their honor, and wise men fell into ruin, not because they lacked strength or intelligence, but because they allowed their emotions to control them. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors in history, warned us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But most men never realize it. They think their emotions are natural, that they are a part of who they are, and so they obey them without question. But emotions are deceptive. They create illusions. They make you act irrationally. They make you weak. And unless you learn to master them, they will lead you down a path of self-destruction. Today, I will expose the 6 reasons why your emotions will ruin your life, if you let them. You will see how they corrupt your decisions, poison your mind, and sabotage your future. And more importantly, you will learn how the Stoics, the greatest thinkers of all time, overcame them, and how you can too. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every like, subscribe, helps us continue our mission of sharing knowledge. And leave a comment below and share your opinion on these reasons, or tell me which one resonates with you the most. Ready to unlock more wisdom? Let's get started. Reason 1. Your emotions distort reality. There is a force within you that constantly manipulates the way you see the world. It whispers in your ear, painting illusions that feel real, bending your perception, twisting your understanding of what is true and what is false. And the most dangerous part? You never even realize it's happening. Imagine standing before a calm lake. The surface is smooth, untouched, a perfect mirror reflecting the world as it is. But the moment a single stone is thrown into the water, everything distorts. The reflection warps, the image bends. What was once clear is now chaotic, shifting, unstable. This is what your emotions do to your mind. They throw stones into your perception, disrupting clarity, making you see not what is, but what they want you to see. Think about the last time you were furious with someone. In that moment, didn't they seem like the worst person alive? Every flaw, every mistake they had ever made, suddenly became proof of their wickedness. But what happened when the anger faded? The person was still the same. The only thing that changed was your emotional state. And yet, for that brief time, you believed your anger's version of reality. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, warned about this. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Emotions don't just distort the present, they poison the past and infect the future. They make you see danger where there is none. They make you remember events not as they happen, but as your feelings want you to remember them. Fear magnifies threats. Jealousy invents betrayals. Love blinds you to red flags. Pride convinces you that you're right, even when you're wrong. The more you trust your emotions, the more you allow yourself to live in a distorted world, a world that exists only in your mind. But here's the truth. Reality doesn't care how you feel. The world is what it is, whether you rage against it or not. The Stoics knew this, and that is why they trained themselves to see clearly, without interference. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most powerful man of his time, wrote in his Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Your emotions are not reality. They are simply reactions, and reactions can be controlled. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you made based on an emotion, only to regret it later? How many friendships have been destroyed because you let anger speak for you? How many opportunities have you ignored because fear whispered that you weren't good enough? If you cannot control your emotions, you cannot trust your own judgment. And if you cannot trust your judgment, you will never see the world as it truly is. So what is the solution? The Stoics practiced a simple but powerful discipline: pause, observe, question. When a strong emotion arises, do not act, do not react. Simply pause, observe it as if it were happening to someone else. Ask yourself, is this true, or is this just how I feel right now? Detach from the illusion. Let the water of your mind become still again. Only then will you see reality for what it is. But most men will never do this. They will continue to be slaves to their emotions, blindly trusting their distortions, never realizing that every step they take is being guided not by truth, but by a lie. And this lie will cost them everything. Now let's move to the next reason. The one that will reveal why emotions are not just deceivers, but destroyers. Reason 2. Your emotions make you weak. Strength is not just about muscle. It is not about how much weight you can lift or how hard you can hit. True strength, the kind that separates the men who shape history from the men who are forgotten, is the ability to stand unmoved in the face of chaos. And nothing will strip you of that strength faster than your emotions. Picture a man who loses control of his temper in an argument. He yells, he throws insults, his voice shakes with rage. At that moment, does he look powerful? Or does he look weak, like a child throwing a tantrum? The more he gives into his anger, the more he reveals how little control he has over himself. Or think of a man crippled by fear. He hesitates, he doubts himself. He has the potential for greatness, but he does nothing because his emotions whisper all the ways he might fail. Is he strong, or is he just a prisoner in his own mind, shackled by invisible chains? The ancient Stoics understood that emotions do not empower you, they enslave you. A man ruled by his emotions is not his own master. He belongs to whatever feeling happens to be strongest in the moment. Today it might be fear, tomorrow it might be anger, the next day it might be despair. He is like a leaf in the wind, tossed in every direction, powerless to resist. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the greatest philosophers of all time, knew this better than anyone. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom is not about having no rulers. It is about not being ruled by your own emotions. Consider the warriors of old. The Spartans, the samurai, the Roman generals. These were men who faced death without flinching, not because they had no fear, but because they refused to let fear control them. They understood that emotions are temporary, but decisions last forever. And a man who allows emotions to make his decisions is a man destined for failure. Look at the world today. How many men ruin their lives because they act on impulse? How many send messages in anger that they regret the next day? How many destroy relationships because jealousy took hold of them? How many fail because they let doubt convince them that success was impossible? A weak man follows his emotions. A strong man commands them. But how do you develop this strength? The answer is simple, but not easy. You must learn to suffer without breaking. The Stoics trained themselves through voluntary hardship. Seneca advised sleeping on the floor, eating simple food, and embracing discomfort, not because these things are necessary, but because they make you realize how little control your emotions truly have. When you choose to suffer, fear loses its power. When you choose to endure, pain becomes irrelevant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is why most men will never be strong. They do not want to endure. They seek comfort. They obey their emotions, mistaking their impulses for wisdom. But in doing so, they make themselves weak, fragile, easily broken. A man who cannot control his emotions is a man who will fall apart when life becomes difficult. And life will become difficult. That is certain. The only question is, will you be strong enough to stand? If not, your emotions will be the ones making that decision for you, and they will lead you to ruin. But there is something even more dangerous than weakness. Something that poisons not just your mind, but your entire life. And that is what we will uncover next. Reason 3. Your emotions destroy discipline. Discipline is the foundation of every great man. It is the force that separates those who achieve from those who only dream. It is the bridge between who you are and who you could become. But there is one thing that will tear that bridge down. One thing that will make discipline impossible: your emotions. A disciplined man does what must be done, regardless of how he feels. A weak man only acts when he feels like it. And that is why most men fail. They wait for motivation. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for the right moment. But the right moment never comes, because emotions are never stable. They rise and fall like waves in the ocean, and if you allow them to dictate your actions, you will never build anything lasting. Consider this. How many times have you set a goal for yourself, only to abandon it the moment it became uncomfortable? You promised yourself you would wake up early, but when the alarm rang, your emotions told you to stay in bed. You planned to work out, but when the time came you felt tired, so you skipped it. You decided to start a project, but when doubt crept in, you listened to it and you quit. This is how emotions destroy men. Not in a single catastrophic moment, but in 1,000 small, seemingly harmless decisions. One skipped workout becomes a week. One ignored responsibility becomes a habit. One compromise becomes a way of life. And before you know it, the man you wanted to be is nothing more than a memory of what could have been. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote in his Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for?" But most men do complain. They listen to the voice inside them that says, "Not today, not right now, maybe later." And this is the voice of failure. This is the voice of mediocrity. This is the voice of the weak man who allows emotions to make his decisions for him. Discipline is not about feelings, it is about action. It is about understanding that emotions are nothing more than fleeting sensations and that they have no power unless you obey them. A soldier does not wait until he feels like fighting. He fights because it is his duty. A builder does not wait until he feels like working. He builds because the structure must rise. A man who understands this is unstoppable. A man who does not will never accomplish anything great. And here's the truth most men refuse to accept. The reason you are not where you want to be in life is because you have let your emotions make too many of your decisions. You have let comfort win over discipline. You have let fear win over action. You have let doubt win over persistence. But there is a way out. The Stoics practiced something called voluntary hardship, forcing themselves into discomfort to break the power of emotions. Seneca would sleep on the floor with only a thin blanket, reminding himself that luxury is not a necessity. Marcus Aurelius, despite being an emperor, lived with the mindset of a soldier, training himself to embrace struggle rather than avoid it. They did this because they knew that if you do not master yourself, you will be mastered by something else. Discipline is built by action, not by feeling. If you wait for emotions to align with your goals, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. But if you act in defiance of them, if you refuse to obey their weaknesses, you will build something that cannot be shaken. The question is, will you do it? Or will you let your emotions continue to lead you down the path of destruction? Because there is something even worse than lost discipline. Something that not only ruins individuals but entire generations. And that is what we must face next. Reason 4. Your emotions make you easy to control. There is a war happening right now. It is not fought with weapons, nor is it fought on battlefields. It is fought in your mind. And the enemy is not just your own emotions. It is the people who know how to use them against you. Look around. Everywhere you turn, someone is trying to manipulate you. Politicians stir fear to gain your obedience. Advertisers play on your desires to make you buy things you don't need. Social media provokes outrage to keep you addicted. The world has mastered the art of emotional control, and if you are not aware of it, you are nothing more than a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. A man who cannot control his emotions is a man who can be controlled by anyone who knows how to manipulate them. And make no mistake, there are people who do know. They know that fear makes you obedient, that anger makes you reckless, that desire makes you impulsive. And they use this knowledge against you, turning you into a pawn in their game. Consider how easily people are controlled by fear. A government tells them there is danger, and without question, they surrender their freedoms. A company tells them they are not good enough, and they spend their money chasing an illusion of worth. A single piece of bad news spreads panic, and suddenly, rational thought disappears. Fear makes men weak. It makes them desperate. And desperate men do not think, they react. Or look at how anger is weaponized. Someone insults you, and instead of thinking, you lash out. A piece of news provokes you, and without verifying it, you spread the outrage. Politicians divide entire nations by fueling resentment, making people fight each other while they remain in power. Anger makes you blind. It makes you predictable. It makes you easy to manipulate. Desire is no different. Companies use it to keep you addicted. Lust makes you chase fleeting pleasure instead of building something lasting. Greed makes you trade long-term stability for short-term gain. Every time you give in to an impulse, someone profits from your lack of control. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. Epictetus warned of this when he said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." No one can control you unless you allow it. But most men do allow it. They believe every fear, obey every impulse, react to every provocation, and in doing so they become slaves, not to a single master, but to every force that knows how to manipulate them. But there is a way to break free. The Stoics practice something called apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense, but a state of unshakable calm. They trained themselves to remain unmoved in the face of provocation, to pause when others reacted, to think when others obeyed, to observe their emotions without being ruled by them. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, had enemies who sought to destroy him. Betrayal, war, and chaos surrounded him. But did he allow his emotions to control him? No. He reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the strength most men will never have. They will continue to be led by fear, anger, and desire, never realizing that every time they surrender to emotion, they hand their power to someone else. A real man, one who has mastered himself, cannot be controlled. He sees fear for what it is and does not obey it. He feels anger but does not let it dictate his actions. He experiences desire but does not become its slave. He is the master of himself, and because of that, no one else can ever be his master. But those who fail to reach this level of control will suffer a far worse fate. They will not just be manipulated by the world, they will destroy their own future with their own hands. And that is what we must face next. Reason 5. Your emotions sabotage your future. Every man has two lives, the one he is living now and the one he could be living if he mastered himself. The difference between these two lives is not luck. It is not fate. It is the simple question of whether a man allows his emotions to sabotage his future. Think about it. Every great downfall, every wasted potential, every moment of regret can be traced back to a man who chose emotion over reason. He gave in to laziness instead of discipline. He chose anger over patience. He let fear stop him from taking action. He allowed desire to pull him away from his purpose. And in doing so, he destroyed the man he was meant to become. Seneca warned of this. A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. He was speaking about the dangers of fear, how men paralyze themselves by imagining failures that do not even exist. How many times have you let fear stop you from taking a risk that could have changed your life? How many opportunities have passed you by because doubt whispered that you weren't good enough? But it is not just fear that sabotages your future. It is every emotion that clouds your judgment. A single moment of anger can burn bridges that took years to build. A single moment of weakness can lead to decisions that ruin your reputation. A single moment of impulse can trap you in a situation that takes a lifetime to escape. Consider how many men have thrown away their future over a temporary emotion. How many have lost everything because they could not control their temper? How many have destroyed their relationships because they acted on jealousy instead of trust? How many have wasted years chasing pleasure, only to wake up one day realizing they built nothing of value? A man ruled by emotions lives in the present moment, but not in the way the wise do. He does not live in the moment with awareness and clarity. He lives as a slave to his impulses, acting on whatever he feels at the time, without considering the consequences. He eats what he craves without thinking of his health. He speaks without thinking of how his words will be remembered. He seeks pleasure without thinking of the price he will pay later. The Stoics knew that the key to a great life was not to live based on feeling, but based on principle. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world will throw countless distractions, temptations, and obstacles in your way. But none of these things have the power to control you unless you allow them to. This is why self-mastery is the foundation of success. A man who controls himself does not destroy his future over fleeting emotions. He does not allow momentary discomfort to make decisions for him. He chooses discipline over ease, strategy over impulse, and wisdom over weakness. But most men will not do this. They will continue to live as slaves to their emotions, making choices that feel good now but lead to regret later. They will continue to sabotage their future, one small decision at a time, until they wake up one day realizing they have built nothing, achieved nothing, and become nothing. And when that moment comes, when they are left alone with the wreckage of a life they could have lived, they will experience the most painful emotion of all, regret. Because there's one last final way in which emotions will ruin your life. One final reason that goes beyond weakness, beyond manipulation, beyond destruction. It is the ultimate consequence of living without control. And that is what we must face next. Reason 6. Your emotions will lead you to regret. There is no pain greater than the weight of regret. Not failure, not loss, not even suffering itself. Because regret is unique, it is the pain of knowing you could have been more, but you chose not to be. It is the pain of realizing that every moment of weakness, every impulsive decision, every excuse you made was a step away from the life you were meant to live. Regret is the final punishment for a man who allows his emotions to control him. It does not strike immediately. No, it is far more cruel than that. It waits. It lingers in the background, unnoticed, as you spend years chasing comfort, pleasure, and ease. It stays silent as you waste time, as you let fear stop you, as you let anger destroy your relationships, as you let laziness steal your potential. And then one day, when it is far too late to change anything, regret steps forward and shows you the truth. It shows you the opportunities you missed because you let fear hold you back. It shows you the relationships you destroyed because you let anger control you. It shows you the dreams you abandoned because you let doubt win. It shows you the man you could have been, standing right in front of you. And it whispers, "This is who you were meant to be." But you chose weakness instead. No man escapes this reckoning. The only question is whether you will face it now, while you still have time to change, or whether you will wait until it is too late. Look at the world around you. How many old men sit in silence, staring into nothing, haunted by the choices they can never undo? How many carry the invisible burden of knowing they wasted their lives? How many would give anything to go back and relive their youth? Not for more pleasure, not for more comfort, but simply for the chance to do things right? Marcus Aurelius warned of this. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Because death is inevitable. But to reach the end of your life and realize you never truly lived, that is the greatest tragedy of all. And the cause of this tragedy? Emotion. Every moment of weakness, every compromise, every failure to act was nothing more than an emotion you obeyed instead of conquered. Fear told you to wait, and you listened. Anger told you to destroy, and you obeyed.